Is it regardless or irregardless? Is it unrational or irrational? Is it unfurlough or defurlough? I mean, who can say? I can say. This one's tough, and it's not even close to clear cut. So hold on to your butts. I'm going to insert the quote.
Hold on to your butts.
You may be someone who is on Twitter, you may be someone who tweets, you might also be someone who's interested in language, in which case you're probably just a human being. And if you're not a human being and you're watching this either in the far future or from somewhere up there, is it okay for me to get drunk in public yet? Either way, I've been reliably informed by some of my friends that there's been an argument on Twitter recently because the Merriam-Webster dictionary now accepts irregardless as a word. It's now been recorded into that dictionary, and there's been you can imagine there's been a Twitter war. Also, my boss has demanded that I clarify whether he should put an un or a d before furlough for all of those lucky souls that he's been bringing back from the bicyclist utopia, socialist utopia that we call furlough, and now back into the world of work that I've been in for pretty much the whole time. So, is irregardless correct, and is it defurlough or unfurlough? Let's start with un and d, and first off, I should say that there is a reasonably straightforward way to understand that, and that is un is passive and d is active. So, I have been unfurloughed, which is passive. I am going to defurlough that person, which will be active. I'm going to destabilize this ironing pile, and now it's unstable. You see, that is very unstable. Unfortunately, that's not quite it, because it appears that actually there are no formal rules for un and d at all. And the more I dug, the more I found that everything that I've just said is probably bollocks. There was a shade of meaning that my friend Alethea came up with, so let's go and bother her for a bit.
Though meaningful differences might be hard to get at in terms of origin, maybe one can expose some difference between the un and the d prefix by contrasting how they function when we swap them out in a sentence. So, for example, if we say we feel unvalued, we say something specifically about the present moment. If we were to say we feel devalued, even though that would be a strange sentence, it would hint at a change that had occurred, that our value had been diminished from what it was before. So un is static here, and d hints at a shift between 2 points. Just a thought.
I mean, it's sort of similar to what I was saying, but I don't know. What do you think? So the reason why I think the un-d rules are probably bollocks is because I found an article on Grammerist, which I'm probably going to quote mostly for the next, couple of minutes at least. And it turns out that most of us are a bit like, me really, that actually, unknowingly, we're all, etymologists. Actually, all of us are tending to use either un or d, depending on the etymology of the word. So let's just have a look at that for a second, shall we? Im, il, so I-M-I-L-I-R, so as in irrational, are all variations of in. In is, it's an old Latin word, and it basically means not. You can find it at the beginning of words like intolerant or inactive or inarticulate, of which, ironically, it took me about 4 takes to say this particular part, because I kept forgetting the word inarticulate. There you go. Have some irony for it. There you go. Have that. The variations pop up in irrational, irredeemable, inadequate. No, that's an IN. Ill-equipped, illegible. These are, as Grammerist points out, generally only found with Latin-rooted words. Things get confusing when you realise that Latin also has another in, which means to cause to, and guess where you can find that? Inflammable. So, inflammable means the same as flammable, and the reason for that is because flammable is actually a shortened version of inflammable, so to cause, to be on fire. So, is a homophone. It's the same. So it's not that. So what you would say in that sentence is you would say it's non-flammable, not inflammable, because that would mean the stuff that I've just said. You understand what I'm saying? Which brings me to another prefix. prefix. Anyway, the prefix non, you can stick that before a word, but when you're doing that, it is an absolute term. So you are saying this is absolutely the opposite. It's not like a passive or active thing. It's very much, this is the opposite of the word that comes after it. So as Grammerist points out, a non-conformist is exactly someone who does not conform. I mean, like, they do not conform in any particular way. I mean, I don't know how you could be a total non-conformist. I guess you'd be dead. That would be how you totally non-conform to life. Just die. I mean, people do die for their art, I suppose. You also get non-fiction, which is writing, which is definitely not made up. And you also get non-committal, which is basically, well, I suppose all of the British government's advice and policy for the last 6 months of this particular global pandemic. Pandemic? I've ruined my point there by saying pandemic wrong. Either way, political. But then we go back to furlough and we realise that with furlough, we could say non-furlough, but that would just mean someone who's in work. I mean, we're looking for an action here. We're looking for something that can be passive as well. We're looking for a bit more flexibility, not such an absolute. Which I guess takes us back to un and d, and their various variations. D, by the way, also has a Latin root, and it means to sort of take off or push away, to have it sort of over there, to separate. So we could probably say D or unfurlough, as we were saying before, and probably use those sort of loose, passive, active rules. But here's the thing. You see, because D essentially means off, you could also say off furlough, and we already have a word in English for that. It's off, so you could say off furlough. So there we go again, another week where I basically look up some stuff and it turns out there are no solid answers, but some of the answers are a bit more solid than the others. So I'm glad you've managed to stick that through. Well done to you if you've managed to get all the way to this point in the video. Oh, and on the regardless, irregardless thing, I'm not a big fan of irregardless, as you may know from my previous video where I talked about it a little bit. Because it's a double negative, effectively. However, its inclusion into the dictionary, I feel, is valid. You see, according to some sources, people have been saying irregardless since, well, the 18th century, which is quite a long time, which basically means it's passed into common parlance. The dictionary is a guide and, well, also a historical document. It's something that records the way that we speak our language. And if you feel a bit annoyed about that, then just go to the entry which says irregardless, and you'll find that just underneath the entry it says non-standard. So, you know, they recognise that it's a non-standard use, that it's probably not correct, but people use it, so it's in a dictionary. There it is. Anyway, take care of yourselves. I hope you're well, and I hope you're safe. I'll see you next week for another video where I'll probably talk about something else that I haven't thought about yet. Probably another word. Take care. Bye-bye.